The chime of the bell beckons us into a sacred time. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, where we widen love's circle by honoring the inherent worth and dignity of all. We extend a heartfelt and inclusive invitation to join us in meaningful worship and in service to the world. We greet all those who join us this morning, those here in our sanctuary, those joining us online via our live stream, así como el creciente número de participantes bilingües que nos acompañan desde sus hogares. I invite you to pause to greet one another after the service, then make your way over here to Channing Hall for coffee and more conversation. I hope you'll take that opportunity to say hello to someone that you've not yet met and make a new friend. So now please join Dr. Rock and the Sanctuary Choir for our first hymn.
Good morning. This morning we're going to sing hymn number 1023 in your teal hymnals. That's 1023. And it is a round. So I am going to ask, since it's just a few of us here this morning, I'm going to ask the choir to sing the first part of the round. They'll sing through one part, and then I'll bring you all sing with me, and we'll come in and sing the second part together, okay? All right, but first, let's sing it all the way through one time. Then the choir will start, and we'll follow them. All right. Please rise in body or spirit. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all our voices and all our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all our voices and all our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all our visions and all our visions, we could make such sweet harmony. Thank you.
Building bridges between our divisions. The words of our opening hymn offer us something of a vision: to bridge the divides, to find unity in diversity, to honor the complexity of life and culture. From these things come peace. For these things we, this community of possibility and potentiality, come together to lift up, to celebrate the beauty that is unique within each and yet unites all. So come, friends, let us worship together.
And now I'm going to ask that you join the choir as we sing the Congregational Covenant. Love is the spirit of our congregation. Service is our prayer to dwell together in peace, to see truth in love and encourage one another. Us to be covenant.
Hello, I'm John Naylor. I came to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston looking for community and found a terrific group of people and became a member in spring 2009. I quickly became involved with the services auction fundraising team, participated with many of the social justice community projects, volunteered and have been working with RE kids for many years now, including the OWL program, which is terrific. And for a while I worked in the church office, retiring from the church office in 2020 when the pandemic kind of got underway. And there are just so many wonderful things about the church. Some of the less sexy things that we need to do with the capital campaign is the phone system that we use is over 15 years old. Have you tried using an iPhone 1 lately? Also, many of the staff are using computers that are more than 10 years old. So those aren't very glamorous items, but we certainly need to update the phone system, the computers. Exciting to see that the solar panels were in the parking lot yesterday. They're on the roof today, so the solar panels are being installed and we'll soon have electrical power self-sufficiency. So it's just really exciting things that are happening at the church, and we need to pay for lots of things. The capital campaign will help that. So I encourage you to please help support the capital campaign. Doesn't matter what amount, anything that you're able to do will be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
And there's still plenty of time to participate. I hope that you'll join me and the 38 other households who've made pledges. Thus far, we have over $1.2 million in commitments, which means that we're more than halfway to our goal of $2.4 million.
dedicated to people like me. Those that struggle with insecurities, securities, and even self-esteem. You never felt good enough. You never felt pretty enough. But imagine God whispering in your ear, letting you know that everything that has happened is now gone. Gone. It's gone. Every doubt, every mistake, every failure, it's all gone. Depression, gone. By faith, it's just gone. Low self-esteem, it's gone. All gone. All my scars, all my pain, my anguish, it's gone. It's in the past like yesterday. It's gone. What your mother did, what your father did, your friends, or who you thought were your friends, it's gone. How happy I am. It's gone.
Thank you so much. That was great. You know, you have a chance at 5 later today to come and hear some more really fabulous music. I snuck in earlier when they were going over some of it, and it's going to be fabulous. So go grab some lunch and hang out at a museum, then come back at 5 and listen to them some more. Carol has gotten some really fabulous people to help her do the programming for the younger people here in the church. And they're about to head out and do some of that right now. As you're going, we want you to know what an important part of this church you are. We love every time we see all the young people here in the sanctuary. And you are loved and an important part, and the adults are going to show that to you by singing as you go. The words are in the order of service. This is the time during the service when we pause for contemplation. It is the time we set aside rushing and distractions, the scurrying and the disruptions. And so, with intention and care, we carve out this time to enter into a time of stillness, a time of calm that may bring us peace and understanding. This is a time that some call meditation and others name prayer. Settle your body into a comfortable place. Breathe with me as we gather to do the holy work of kinship and support. Open your mind, open your heart. God of many names and mystery beyond all our naming, the poet tells us the border is a line that birds cannot see. Yet somehow we find ourselves incising that line into the earth with walls and guardhouses, and floating it upon the river with razor wire. May we be forgiven for making real these unseen lines in order to divide us from and to harm others. We build a wall upon the false binary of genders despite our minds and hearts not finding it necessary. We build a wall between ethnicities and races despite our eyes and hearts not finding it necessary. We build a wall between languages despite our ears and hearts not finding it necessary. Teach us to respond with our hearts, to respond with that force that birds cannot see, our ears cannot hear, and our skin cannot touch. Teach us to respond with a force that will unite instead of divide, and heal instead of harm. Teach us to approach these borders not to build walls, not with suspicion and fear, but to build bridges with acceptance and love. We pray in the names of all those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten. We pray in the names of all helpers of humankind. Amen. We pause now together to lift up that which sits heavy and light on our hearts. Freddie Jones, mother of Tawana Grice, underwent successful surgery on Tuesday and is now recuperating. Sarah Lucky, mother of members Heather Farina and David Wordlow, passed away on Tuesday. We hold them and their families in our hearts as they grieve. We continue to pray for the people of Israel and Palestine and pray for their safety, for peace, and for justice. We now turn to a practice inspired by African, indigenous, and pagan traditions. We say aloud or bring to mind those who we wish to be held by the loving embrace of this religious community. They are part of the great cloud of witness and memory, and we will, even if we do not know their names, hold them in our hearts. In this great cloud of witness and memory, amid this beloved community, we hear these names and hold them in our hearts. Let us remember the suffering and joy amid and among our community that we do not know. Each week at this juncture, we enter into a time of silence, a time when we pause in awe and wonder of the beauty, diversity, and mystery that is life. In the spirit of love, in the spirit of hope, and in the spirit of compassion, I now invite each of you to enter into a time of silent prayer, meditation, or reflection.
Each week, our morning offering is shared with an organization that shares our Unitarian Universalist values and through which we may live out our principles in the world. This week, that organization is Waikuta USA, a non-governmental, nonprofit organization representing the interests of the Mbum people of Cameroon in West Central Africa. Today we have with us the founders of the Wimbum Cultural and Development Association, which spearheaded an effort 2 years ago to build a surgical center in Adu, Cameroon. Dr. Elias Bongba is professor of religion at Rice University, where he teaches about the religions of Africa. He is the recipient of many distinguished awards and has won international recognition for his work on HIV/AIDS in Africa. Dr. Odilia Nagala Ubongba is a clinical researcher with Novartis Pharmaceuticals. She is an agronomist by training and has a master's degree in forest management and a PhD in pharmacology with a specialization in neuroscience. Cameroon's civil war blocked access to the major regional hospitals, denying critical care to many. The successful effort to build the surgical center 2 years ago has saved well over 1,000 lives. Dr. Elias Bongba will now tell us more about the project to build a child and maternal wing of the hospital.
Thank you, Dr. Strassman, and thank you, Pastor. We are very delighted to be here, really honored. Odilia and I just want to put it on the table that the driving force has been Diana and Jeff Smisek and Anne and Albert Chow. They have been our friends and motivated us in many, many ways. So the Civil War further compromised the health challenges that included malaria, HIV/AIDS, and many other tropical diseases. The hospital joins other hospitals in its system that is open to all persons. Malaria and other tropical diseases continue to compromise public health, and the hospital will emphasize treatment, prevention, and more importantly for us, champion child and maternal welfare. In order to do these things, the hospital needs the infrastructure necessary to treat the patients and also practice preventive medicine. We are very grateful to be here and share this worship service with all of you. Thank you very much.
Those in our sanctuary will find the instructions for text giving in the order of service next to the name of the shared offering recipient, and those watching the live stream will see the instructions on your screen. Our regular Sunday morning offering collection invites us to weave a tapestry of love and action. We ask you to give generously. An offering will now be gratefully received.
please join with me in our words to dedicate our offering found in your order of service. To the work of this church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings.
The first reading is To Live in the Borderlands Means You by Gloria Anzaldúa. Are neither hispana, india, negra, española, ni gabacha, eres mestiza, mulata, half-breed, caught in the crossfire between camps, while carrying all 5 races on your back, not knowing which side to turn to, run from. To live in the borderlands means knowing that the India in you, betrayed for 500 years, is no longer speaking to you, that Mexicanas call you rajetas, that denying the Anglo inside you is as bad as having denied the Indian or black. Cuando vives en la frontera, people walk through you. The wind steals your voice. You're a burra, buey, scapegoat, forerunner of a new race, half and half, both woman and man, neither, a new gender. To live in the borderlands means to put chile in the borscht, to eat whole wheat tortillas, to speak Tex-Mex with a Brooklyn accent, be stopped by La Migra at the border checkpoints. Living in the borderlands means you fight hard to resist the go to elixir becoming from the bottle, to the pull of the gun barrel, the rope crushing the hollow of your throat. In the borderlands, you are the battleground, where enemies are kin to each other. You are at home, a stranger. The border disputes have been settled. The volley of shots have shattered the truce. You are wounded, lost in action, dead, fighting back. To live in the borderland means the mill with the razor-white teeth wants to shred off your olive red skin, crush out the kernel, your heart. Pound pinch you, roll you out, smelling like white bread but dead. To live in the borderlands, you must live sin fronteras, be a crossroads. Here ends the first reading.
The second reading is from Borderlands, La Frontera, the New Mestiza, by Gloria Anzaldúa. The struggle is inner: Chicano, Indio, American Indian, Mojado, Mexicano, immigrant, Latino, Anglo in power, working class Anglo, Black, Asian. Our psyches resemble the border towns and are populated by the same people. The struggle has always been inner and is played out in the outer terrains. Awareness of our solution must come before inner changes, which in turn come before changes in society. Nothing happens in the real world unless it first happens in the images in our head.
Your hymnals, the teal ones, to 1026. 1026. Then rise in body or in spirit and join together as we sing, If Every Woman in the World.
Everyone
I press my hand to the steel curtain. Chain link fence crowned with rolled barbed wire. Rippling from the sea where Tijuana touches San Diego. Unrolling over mountains and plains and deserts. This tortilla curtain turning El Rio Grande, flowing down to the flatlands of the magic valley of South Texas, its mouth emptying into the Gulf. 1,950-mile-long open wound, dividing a pueblo, a culture, running down the length of my body, staking fence rods into my flesh, splits me, mi raja. This is my home, this thin edge of barbed wire, but the skin of the earth is seamless. The sea cannot be fenced. El mar does not stop at borders. To show the white man what she thought of his arrogance, Yemiya blew that wire fence down. This week we continue our sermon series, Lives of the Spirit, on some of the great spiritual activists of the 20th century, with the Chicano writer and queer theorist Gloria Anzaldúa, whose words we just heard. It was she that felt that the Texas border could be characterized as an open wound running through the length of her body. And it was she who sought to take the experience of living at, growing in, being on a border culture where the lifeblood of two worlds merge to form a third, to develop a new kind of spirituality. This she called a new mestiza consciousness, a consciousness of the borderlands. Because I, mestiza, continually walk out of one culture and into another, because I am all cultures at the same time. Alma entre dos mundos, tres, cuatro. Mi zumba la cabeza con lo contradictio. Estoy nortenda por todas las voces que me hablan simultáneamente. My soul caught between 2, 3, 4 worlds. My head buzzes with the contradiction. I'm buzzing with all of the voices that talk to me simultaneously. That's the Spanish translation. The word mestiza means to mix. Historically, it's a term that referred to the children whose parents came from two different ethnicities, one European Spanish, the other indigenous. For Anzaldúa, the word meant that, yes, but it also symbolized the wisdom that came from straddling two or more cultures and learning from them to change the way we perceive reality, to create a new consciousness. For her, this meant mixing customs, traditions, religions, words from the Chicano, Indio, American Indian, Mojado, Mexicano, immigrant Latino, Anglo in power, working class Anglo, Black, Asian. What might it mean for you? What mix of identities do you carry? It's a central claim of our sermon series that the mystic is someone who finds the universal within the particular, the infinite within something of their own experience. Put another way, Anzaldúa understood a truth about what it means to be human in our age of dislocation and disruption. It's to always be living on the borders between one identity and another, between one country and another. When asked to describe herself, she would name all of the identities she inhabited. A third world lesbian, feminist with Marxist leanings. the borders between one identity and another. For Anzaldúa, the borders were both material and metaphorical. The material, living in Texas, the material borders which she invoked, which she found inscribed into her very flesh, are familiar to many of us. She grew up in the Rio Grande Valley at a time when it was easy to cross from one country to another. The blood of some 4 cultures flowed through her veins: African, indigenous, Espanol, Anglo. There was something of each within her. To show the white man what she thought of his arrogance, Yemaya blew that wire fence down. Yemaya is a divine being from the Yoruba people in present-day Nigeria. She made her way to the Western Hemisphere with the slave ships and serves as one of the Orishas, the spirits of voodoo, Santeria, and many other African-inspired traditions that came from the encounter of the blood of one continent and another. Patron of the waters, be they sweet streams and brooks or salty marshes and seas, she is slow to anger. Yet when roused, she can unleash her rage with all the turbulence of a flooding river. Yemaya blew that wire fence down. In this era, in this time we exist in, Anzaldúa invokes Yemaya to suggest that it is hopeless to maintain borders, that all borders will ultimately crumble, will be blown away by the force of the world. Dividing lines will be erased and something new will be born. The metaphorical. The borders which Anzaldúa named do not begin in the physical realm. They start within us. Once they take form inside our imaginations, we strive to give them material existence. Nothing happens in the real world unless it first happens in the images of our minds. Her words. To live in the borderlands means to put chili in the borscht, eat whole wheat tortillas, speak Tex-Mex with a Brooklyn accent, be stopped by La Migra at the border checkpoints. The universal within the particular. There are more migrants now living in the world today than at any other point in human history. In 2022, the United Nations counted 280 million people who reside outside of their country of origin. That's almost 4% of the human population, 1 out of every 25 people. Of them, close to half are refugees, people who have departed their homelands involuntarily for reasons of fleeing violence, economic desperation, or climate crisis. Dislocation, disruption, these are defining characteristics of our age. We are all mixed up. Every city is the home of not one culture or ethnicity, but many. Drive from one side of Houston to the other, and you will encounter signs in a dozen languages and invitations to eat in perhaps 100 different cuisines. Walk into any room, and many of the people you are likely to encounter will be from someplace other than here. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Massachusetts, Michigan, New York, Oklahoma. Members of our congregation come from all over the United States. Pakistan, Mexico, Cuba, Germany, China, India. Members of our community come from all over the world. We're all mixed up. Between my household and my parents' house, I count connections to 4 different spiritual or religious traditions: Protestant Christianity, Judaism, Unitarian Universalism, and Ifa. What about you? What religious and cultural traditions make up your families, your groups of friends? It's hard these days to find people who are all purely from one culture. The borderlands, the places where cultures rub one against the other, are seemingly everywhere. I was reminded of this last summer when I was at Oxford for a research seminar. There were about 20 of us, scholars from around the world, coming from the United States, the United Kingdom, Indonesia, South Korea, South Africa, Romania. It was quite a mix. For reasons that are unclear to me, one of the largest contingents there were a group of professors affiliated with universities that belonged or that were run by the Church of Latter-day Saints. These guys, and they were all men, were really devout and deeply immersed in Mormon culture. It would probably be fair to call them super Mormons. Now, I don't really say that facetiously, but really because I can't think of any other way to describe them. They all traced their lineages back to the earliest generation of church converts. They all lived in Utah. They were all leaders in their congregations. They had all chosen to teach at universities run by their faith community. They followed their religion's strictures. No tea at tea time. No sherry with the faculty. Thank you very much. They were curious about Unitarian Universalism. And here I should probably mention that the seminar I took part in took place at Oxford's Harris Manchester College. Though it has no denominational affiliation, it was founded more than 250 years ago as a Unitarian seminary. It has the strongest collection of global Unitarian and Universalist theology in the world. This is something that the head research librarian there always highlights when she meets with visiting faculty, which kind of confused our Mormon friends since they'd never heard of Unitarian Universalism before. So naturally, they asked me to explain something about our religious tradition. And I spoke about Unitarian Universalism's non-creedal nature, openness to religious pluralism, and practice of covenant to unite a community of diverse beliefs. I told them how we've decided that we need not think alike to love alike, to paraphrase Francis David, and that as a religious community, we believe that it is more important what we do in the world than what we each individually believe. We're not so concerned about who has the correct system of beliefs. Now, I got the response from our Mormon friends that I often get from people who believe that they know the one true God. And that's to say, they told me, well, that doesn't really sound like a religion at all. One of them was a bit more introspective. Actually, he said, it sounds like my family at Christmas. Now, not my brothers and sisters or my parents or anything like that, but my children. They have all left the church. He sighed sadly and married outside of it. When the whole family gets together, it's something of the United Nations. I have a Jewish son-in-law, a daughter-in-law who was raised Hindu, and an adult child who's rejected the church's teachings on gender and identifies as trans. His comparison of Unitarian Universalism to his family at Christmas was not really meant to be a compliment. Our friend was quite distressed at the diversity within his familial life. But I have to admit, I thought it was rather quite wonderful, though I did have the wisdom to keep that point to myself. The thing that it reminded me of is that our contemporary society, in this hour, it is impossible to really maintain a cultural sense of cultural purity. I mean, here was this super Mormon, and his world was just all mixed up. Indeed, and I want to suggest, and I'll get to this a bit later, many of the world's problems come from trying to maintain this sense of purity at a time when, if I want something for dinner tonight, I can get Indian or Italian or Nigerian or Cajun or Japanese or really almost any kind of food. And whichever I decide on, it's likely that if I go to the grocery store today, I will encounter someone from each or many other communities. Is that not your experience, that we're constantly engaging with people whose cultures of origin are not our own? Maybe you're in an interfaith or interracial relationship. Maybe you have friends from a diversity of backgrounds. Maybe your coworkers come from a variety of countries. In these days, the borderlands, the places where one culture crosses into another, are everywhere. Life for most of us is a bit like Anzaldúa described. In the borderlands, you are the battleground, where enemies are kin to each other. You are at home, a stranger. One of the strengths of the Unitarian Universalist tradition is that we lean into the mixing of the world rather than away from it. Our movement's long been described by scholars of religion as a hybrid tradition. As I've shared with you before, Unitarian theology arose in the 16th and 17th century in those parts of Europe that sat at the borderlands between Jewish and Christian or Christian and Muslim communities. These religious ancestors of ours believed that everyone was a child of God, regardless of religious persuasion, and that the path to peace was to recognize that we are all children of the same God. In celebrating this recognition, they drew not only from Christian sources, but also from the sources and traditions of their Jewish and Muslim neighbors. They were, in some sense, practitioners of what Anzaldúa has named spiritual mestizaje. Drawing on her experience as a queer bilingual person of color, she understood herself as someone engaged in the transfer of ideas and information from one culture to another. She took her own mixed nature as a testimony that blending proves that all blood is intricately woven together and that we are all spawned from similar souls. We're all spawned from similar souls. It's worth saying something of Anzaldúa's biography. She was born in Harlingen, less than 20 miles from the United States and Mexico border, and barely 30 miles from the ocean. Her family lived on those South Texas lands 6 generations. She was part Mexican, part indigenous, part Anglo, and a bit African, a reflection of the mixing that took place within those borderlands. Forerunner of a new race, half and half, both woman and man, neither a new gender. She knew she was queer from the earliest of her days. As a child, a hormonal imbalance caused her to go through puberty at only 6 years of age. And so she never felt comfortable really as a woman or identifying as a man. Neither gender spoke to her experience. Reflecting on her earliest engagements with the eyes of others, she found herself labeled, in her words, queer, and retreated into books and solitude. That might be a familiar experience for some of you. She took it as an invitation or an imperative, I'm not quite sure, to reinvent herself out of all of the mix of identities she inhabited. Her text, her words: being a tomboy and wearing boots, being unafraid of snakes and knives, not settling down and getting married, being a politica, leaving home to go to college, showing my contempt for women's roles, siding with the farm workers. She took the blend that she was and she offered up her life as an attempt to create something new, something that would heal the wounds that emerged when cultures rubbed against each other. We can no longer disown the white parts, the male parts, the pathological parts, the queer parts, the vulnerable parts. Embracing all of the elements of her identity was an opportunity, she believed, to reshape spiritual identity. Educated in a public school system where she was discouraged from speaking Spanish, she went to college at the University of Texas, Pan American, and then earned a master's degree from the University of Texas, Austin. From there, she moved to California, where she took up the life of a full-time writer, poet, essayist, manufacturer of literary fictions. Her most famous text is Borderlands, La Frontera, the New Mestiza. It's credited with being a foundational work in Chicano and Latina studies, queer theory, disability theory, and feminism. In it, she sought to create a revolutionary new spiritual freshness from the diversity that she was. And few books in the last few decades have been as influential. Perhaps because this was for her, writing for her was a spiritual practice. She saw the role of the poet as similar to that of a shaman, observing, the role of the shaman is to preserve and create cultural identity by mediating cultural heritage of the past and present-day situations. It was through metaphor, she thought, that we preserve ourselves. It was through metaphor, she argued, that we change ourselves. The resistance to change in a person is in direct proportion to the number of dead metaphors that person carries, she believed. She sought through her writing practice to create new metaphors, metaphors that would cast out false visions of purity, embrace the blending of diversity, and offer hope and healing. Here's a description of her writing as spiritual practice. I sit before my computer, my altar on top of the monitor with the virgin candle and copal incense burning. My companion, a wooden staff with feathers, is to my right, while I ponder the ways metaphor and symbol concretize the spirit and etherealize the body. The ways metaphor and symbol concretize the spirit and etherealize the body. An invitation to pay attention to these and then create new metaphors and symbols is one of the gifts this spiritual activist offers us. She invites us into a practice that emerges by embracing rather than rejecting the blending of cultures that occur at the borderlands. Instead of seeking a purity that is impossible to find in a world that is all mixed up, she encourages us to live sin fronteras. What borderlands do you live at? What cultures or identities make up your life? How might you live sin fronteras and embrace the distinctive elements of your life? Is there healing to be found for you by doing so? Certainly there was for Anzaldúa, who sought to create a new synthesis from opening herself up to the knowledge. The skin of the earth is seamless. The sea cannot be fenced. El mar does not stop at the borders. It seems wise not to end the sermon quite there, but rather with a comment about what we humans suffer, the pain and horrors we inflict upon each other by refusing to embrace the truth that I have just named, that borders are things that we create in our minds and then inscribe upon the earth. How many of our conflicts, our disruptions, our dislocations are due to trying to preserve a fleeting sense of human purity in the face of human diversity? And here I think of the damage that is done by maintaining a certain kind of citizenship and a certain set of borders here in the United States by erecting physical boundaries on this metaphor of border between Texas and Mexico. And here I find myself thinking of the horrific conflict, the humanitarian disaster, the tit-for-tat war crimes unfolding in Gaza. how much of the conflict in Israel-Palestine can be attributed to a desire for powerful voices on both communities to remain pure, to have the land and culture be Jewish and not Palestinian, or to have it be Palestinian and not Jewish. Perhaps the path to peace lies through embracing the blending of cultures rather than rejecting it. To survive the borderlands, you must live sin fronteras, be a crossroads. My speculations about the Middle East conflicts might be useless. It's hard right now to imagine a path towards peace, or that Israel or Hamas will heed the United Nations call for a ceasefire. It seems likely that one of the worst ethnic cleansings in memory is underway. But what FIRSTUU offers us, whether we are Chicana or not, is the opportunity to develop a new kind of spirituality from the reality of our age. We all live on borders. Borders are permeable. We can refuse to recognize this and futilely try to maintain fences and barriers, or we can open ourselves to being crossroads, places for mixing and creating something new. What shall we choose? Nothing happens in the real world unless it first happens in the images of our heads. FIRSTUU's words end my sermon and offer the congregation an opportunity to say Amen.
And now I invite you to open your hymnal to number 24 in the purple hymnals. Purple hymnals 24. Tengo sed de ti. Repeat after me. Tengo sed de ti, oh fuente del amor. Tengo sed de ti, tu amor la libertad.
Tengo sed de ti, oh fuente del amor. Tengo sed de ti, tu amor es libertad. Tengo sed de ti, oh fuente del
Please join me in saying the words for extinguishing our chalice printed in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
To survive in the borderlands, you must live sin fronteras, be a crossroads. Hearing these words, may we open ourselves to the diversity in the world and the ways in which cultures, borders can intersect. Let us take these intersections for invitations to what they are, invitations to bring a new form of beauty into the world. Go in peace, go in love. May our lives be a blessing. Amen.